He earned his master's in business administration from George Mason University and his bachelor's of science in aerospace engineering from here at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He is a proud U.S. Navy veteran as well. Gus has helped organizations across the federal to local government spectrum develop and implement strategic plans, understand stakeholder perspectives, and transform their organizations. Gus has an array of different clients that he's worked with, including the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Veteran Affairs, Department of Defense, Department of Agriculture, and Prince William County of Virginia. His methods are applicable to both large and small organizations, public and private, as well as individuals. And I present to you Mr. Gus Lawson.
All right. Well, thank you, Chanel. Let's see. So to open, I'd like you to consider, when was the last time you thought about what's possible? And so as you think about that, what I encourage you to think about in our discussion today and even afterwards is what's the future that you want to create, and how can you take more control of that and put measures and systems in place to help you start getting the outcomes that you want to see, both professionally and personally. And so let's jump in. Before we get started, just a couple of brief tips to help you increase your webinar experience. So first of all, I'd like to make this interactive. So if you have questions, please use the chat feature if you're online. Let's make it a discussion. There are going to be questions. I'd love to learn from you as well. So if you have experiences, I encourage you to share those. And then also, Chanel, if you could do me a favor, and if there's anything popping up or common themes, and you want to interrupt me in the flow, please feel free to do that. Again, I want to make this interactive and it's a discussion and not just me speaking the whole time. So some other real brief tips is, number one, silence your phone. Number two is actually take your phone and put it out of reach so you're not tempted to go back, and that'll increase your webinar experience, because I'd hate for you guys to miss anything. And the third thing is have pen and paper handy. I can imagine you'll see some questions you want to copy down, or you'll have some insights that you discover and that you'll want to take action on later. So again, have pen and paper handy so you can jot those things down. So without further ado, go ahead, and if you just type in the chat and share with me, have you ever taken the time to think about what you want out of your career? Okay, I'm seeing a yes. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, definitely. Thank you, Rafal. Okay, great. Okay, not much. That's okay. And so part of this today is to create awareness and to create, some insights for you, so that you can consider, I haven't done that. Maybe I should do this. Or that's a good idea. Let me try that. Okay, so are you waiting to let opportunities find you? I'll explain a little later. I was definitely guilty of this early in my career. So if you have, no problem. Okay, and so another thing is, what's really stopping you from getting what you want? We're going to discuss some common limiting beliefs, and we're going to discuss some strategies on how to overcome those limiting beliefs today. So lots of stuff out there for you today. Okay, so you may be wondering, am I in the right place? Is this webinar for me? So if you know that a better future is possible and you're searching for a way to create it, then you're definitely in the right spot. If you feel like you're stagnant in your career, you've tried different things and you're just not getting the progress that you'd like to see, you're definitely in the right spot. And if you want to proactively take action to achieve your goals, you're in the right spot. But first, let's get real. So there's three real career building fears that I've seen in others. So number one is, I'm hesitant to put myself out there. I'm a little bit shy, or I've seen others that are really out there and really extroverted, and that turns me off, and I don't want to come across that way. And so I get it. Okay. The other thing is, aligned with that extroversion, people don't want to feel dirty. If they feel like, oh, well, I'm looking for this, or, here's what I'm interested in, and they're tapping into their network, and they're afraid of the ask. They don't want to feel as though they're coming across as that used car salesman. The other one is, maybe they think that they're too old, or maybe they think they're too young, or maybe they're not experienced enough in a particular sector, or maybe they just don't have the education that they need to branch into a different field. Those are all relevant career building fields. Before we get into the heart of the content, I think it's relevant to share my story. So when I was 13 years old, it was very clear to me what I wanted to achieve. And so I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was living north of Miramar. It was Naval Air Station at the time. Now it's a Marine Corps Air Station. And I was always strong in math and science. And so I knew I wanted to, be an aerospace engineer, and I wanted to fly for the Navy. And so I did it. Well, I didn't fly for the Navy, but I did serve in the Navy. I got, as Chanel mentioned, I got my aerospace engineering degree from Illinois Tech. I loved every minute of that. I loved my experience in the Navy. That was all fun stuff. And so I felt fulfilled. But then when I was transitioning out, I knew that there were many opportunities for me. But since I had completed what my dreams were and what I wanted, I hadn't really considered or put much thought or planning into what's next. And so while I didn't use my aerospace degree heavily in the Navy, so I lost some of that skill set, I did some operational engineering, and that allowed me to get back into engineering because I thought that was a good fit. I enjoyed my operational engineering experience in the Navy, so I thought that was a good fit for me. Ultimately, it wasn't fulfilling, and so that led me down the MBA path, like the systems engineering path. And my very first organizational design class or behavior class, it hit me like a ton of bricks. That this was my calling. This was what I was supposed to be doing. So I left the engineering company I was with, shifted over to consulting, and I was doing instructional design, doing some classes for clients. And then I knew that there was more. And so that led me to get my change management certification. And after that, in applying tools and change management techniques to help organizations lead change, I knew that wasn't everything that organizations needed. So that's what prompted me to get into the coaching realm. And really, that was kind of the epiphany, is now I was able to make a direct impact and see instantaneous results from the work that I did. So that became very fulfilling for me. So I went from unfulfilling to very fulfilling. Part of that career, I just waited to let opportunities find me. So, for example, I was on a contract for 4 years, and I was happy, and I wasn't really thinking about what's next for me. And it wasn't until that a management opportunity became available, and my leadership asked me to take it, that I said, okay, well, that's a good move. for me, and let me take that. I wasn't being proactive to find out what those next opportunities could have been. And it wasn't until I was actually unsettled about my future when I decided to pursue the coaching. And while I don't reflect a lot on the past and play the shoulda, woulda, coulda game, I do like sometimes wonder, what could have been different if I had reflected about what I wanted? What could have been different if I did put in place what I put in place 2 years ago, if I would have put that in place 10, 15 years ago? And the only reason why I share that now is because it's so important to just take steps, take actions, get out there. And we'll talk more about this as we go. And so what lessons can you learn from what I've discovered? So number one, it's possible to create the change that you want. Number two, it's freeing to go after the opportunities that I wanted. And number three, small steps can help you create more productive results. So for the perfectionists in the group, don't worry about being perfect. Just go out there and take action. There is no fail. There is no right or wrong. Think of it as a learning experience. Okay. The fourth thing, the uncomfortable can become comfortable. And so this leads us into the framework that I mentioned, just a 4-phase career confidence roadmap. And we're going to touch on each of these phases at a high level, and we're going to focus most of our time today on the first 2 phases. But by all means, you'll see at the end there's my contact information. If you'd like to, explore those other phases and what that means to you, I'm happy to connect and keep the conversation going. So the first step here, discover what you want. Identify, the one, perhaps 2 things that really excite you, that really want to help you. And you may recall that in the advertisement for this, we talked about developing your personal mission statement, and we're going to get to that. And that, what I find is that personal mission statement, if you take the time to reflect on that, that'll help you define exactly what you want. Okay, the second phase is actually taking steps, proactive steps, to find that opportunity. Number 3, to lock in that opportunity. And then number 4, once you're in that new role, making sure that you're delivering the results so that people will see that you're someone who's providing value. All right, so what will you be able to accomplish after today? So number 1, determine the outcomes that you want to see in your personal and professional life. Number 2, again, develop your personal mission statement. Number 3, recognize some beliefs that may be holding you back. And number 4, build your action plan to find your next opportunity. Okay, so I'd like to just, again, I do want to make this a discussion, so I'll pause here for a minute. Please go ahead and enter into the chat. What are you hoping to get from today's discussion? Am I on target with those objectives, or are there other things that you'd like to discuss? Okay, thanks, Joy. Joy likes what we have so far. David says we're on target. Okay, new ways to look at the issues of personal development. Thanks, Todd. Okay, how to start your career as a fresh graduate. Well, Rafal, I think you're really going to benefit from this. If I would have put in place now what I'm doing now, and hopefully what you can learn from, you'll find that this will really help you propel your career. Okay, anybody else want to share?
So we also have people that
Okay.
are on the phone. If you guys want to say something, then feel free and then mute yourselves back.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing is that we're pretty much on target. Um, but again, if you'd like to chime in, please do. Anybody else want to share? Just one more brief pause. Okay, well, let's get to it. So first thing, let's determine the outcomes that you want to see in your personal and professional life. So again, have pen and paper handy. Um, these questions that you'll see, they're just kind of meant to stimulate some thought. And so if you see a question that you like, please go ahead and just jot it down. And you may not be able to reflect on everything during that time because I'm going to throw a lot at you, but you'll be able to then reflect on it later, whether tonight, tomorrow, hopefully sometime in the near future. Oops. Sorry about this. The formatting was a little bit off, so I'm using a PDF file instead of a PowerPoint. So let me catch back up here. All right, here we go. All right. So first question to consider is, what future do you want to create for yourself? Whether it's your personal life, your family life,
Everyone hear
and what
me?
I encourage you. Oh, I can hear you now. Was there something you'd like to contribute?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
And Gus, do we still have you on the line?
Yep, can you hear me? Hello?
Give us one moment. I believe we may have lost our audio connection to Gus.
Hey, Chanel, can you hear me? Oh, hey, Chanel, looks like other people can hear me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue.
Thank you for riding the CTA Dreadnought.
All right, so after you consider about your future and think about what you want in your personal and professional life, um, one other thing to consider is, what will you be able to see when you create this feature? And what will you be able to see? What will you be able to hear? Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of a sound there. Oh, okay, I think it's gone now. Let's see. So as you consider that, and it may be difficult for you to quantify or to think about, the specific results that you want to see. Well, what I encourage you to do is use sensory specific words. So things that you'll be able to see, things that you'll be able to hear, things that you'll be able to feel, so that you know that you're on the right path towards creating this new future. In other words, you're kind of putting your own performance measures in place so that you know that you're on the right track. And again, how will you feel? How will you feel once you're starting to feel confidence in the steps that you're taking to create this new future? Okay, so here's just a simple framework. So when you start thinking about the outcomes, I find that there's three main things that can keep people either really aligned towards achieving those outcomes, or not aligned and keeping them from keeping those outcomes, or achieving those outcomes. So the first ones are the beliefs, and we're going to expand on this more. The second one are the activities, and then the relationships. And so just a real brief story here. And in fact, I'll probably discuss it a little bit more. But when I used to have the belief that I didn't value networking. And so as a result, I wasn't meeting new people and I wasn't putting myself out there. And so therefore, I wasn't able to develop those new relationships and identify and find out of potential new opportunities. So just because those beliefs weren't aligned with what I wanted, then that kept me from attaining what I wanted in my career. So I encourage you to think of outcomes, beliefs, activities, and relationships. And so if you're finding it difficult to achieve your outcomes, then you can look at these other three dimensions, the activities, relationships, and beliefs, and see which of these might be contributing to you not achieving the outcomes that you want to see. Okay, so to help you create this future, what will you be doing 3 years from now? And then backwards plan it. To attain that 3 years from now, what will you be doing a year from now? To attain that, what will you be doing 3 months from now? And recognizing that something will likely be different, what will you do this week to help you create this new future? Okay, so again, it all starts with steps, it all starts with action. And so sometimes people have difficulty really because there's lots of opportunity, lots of options. One of the benefits of being an Illinois Tech grad is, we develop lots of skills. And just as my fellow servicemen that I served with, in the military, we develop lots of skills. And so as a result, it can be difficult to say, all right, which of these skills do I want to do? Which direction do I want to take my career? And what is it that I want to achieve? And so what I encourage you to think about is imagine you're having lunch or dinner with someone, a protege, and they ask you, what are you most proud of? And given that your answer will be anything that you've done after today, how will you answer? What is it that will excite you? What is it that will keep you motivated? All right, so let's get to the personal mission statement. So 3 questions here. The first one is, what skills do you enjoy using? Or what skills do you even envision that you would enjoy using? Even if it's a gap right now, but something you potentially like to use in the future. Okay. Number 2, who do you want to benefit from you using those skills? And then the third one, how will they benefit? So how will you using those skills benefit the people that you want to serve? And I'm just going to let this pause here to allow you to a minute just to capture those questions, because I think these are some 3 real critical questions to help you guide where you want to take your careers. And by all means, even if after I pause and you still haven't captured it, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send these back to you. Okay, so here's an example. Here's my personal example. So I build rapport, consider client interests, and ask insightful questions to help leaders create environments where people and teams thrive. That's what gets me motivated. That's what gets me charged up. And again, going from an organizational development background where you might not see changes 2-3 years later down the road after making shifts organizationally, when I work with leaders, I'm able to see a shift in them almost instantaneously. When they have that aha moment of, oh, I want to consider trying this now, that's what gets me excited. Okay, and so again, experiment. There is no right or wrong. Play with it. Write a couple different ones. Share them with your network. Get people's reactions, and use your trusted advisors to see, all right, based upon what my interests are, what people react, how do I want to refine my personal mission statement, and how do I want to go forward from there? Okay, so let's recognize some beliefs that might be holding you back. Okay, so as you were going through those last series of questions where we're talking about your future, where are you stopping yourself? So what I encourage people to do is when they think of those initial questions, to just either on a whiteboard or on pen and paper, just start jotting things down. And then I want you to be aware of when you're in a thought and you stop writing. If you're in a thought and you stop writing, why is it that you stop writing? What is the belief that's stopping you from finishing that thought? Why aren't you finishing that thought? What's the belief that's keeping you from executing or writing that idea down? Okay, so maybe you thought, I can't do that because, so again, this is more of a rhetorical question. I recognize it's a private question. So no need to contribute unless you really want to share and get feedback. But what reasons do you have for not pursuing the future that you want to create? What excuses are you making? And here's a technique I like to share with you. But once I work with people and I understand the belief that's holding them back, a popular exercise is simply to reframe the belief. And it's easier said than done, but it's still possible. And so let me share with you my personal example. So I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but when I was a kid, I moved around a lot. That's the boxes on the left. And so I was always able to make new relationships quickly, but I didn't necessarily value relationships in the past. Okay, this coupled with my belief about hard work and being recognized for working hard. And then also one other thing that you'll see is, again, there was a distaste that I had for some people that I viewed as schmoozers or people that were quick to praise themselves, and that didn't sit well with me. And so you factor those three things in, and I didn't really value networking. I didn't see the point of it. So I thought I would be recognized for my hard work, and I just didn't see the need for it. Okay, so again, on the left, you'll see I'd be recognized for my hard work. Self-promoters are icky, and the fact that I moved around a lot, those three factors, networking wasn't important to me. So when I found myself, kind of in a crux in my career, I realized I needed to develop my network, and I needed to strengthen my network. And so I created a new belief. If I do this, and there you can see it, if I gain comfort with networking and be true to myself, then I will find opportunities. And so I put it into positive ways that I can be comfortable with networking so that I could find new additional opportunities. And I'm going to go into more specifics about how I gained comfort with networking here in a little bit. What questions does this bring up for you guys? I think now's a good time to pause. Again, I've thrown a lot at you so far, but what questions does this bring up? Okay, great. Thanks for asking. So the question is, how did I overcome this deep belief? So it's small things. And so I broke down, what does gaining comfort with networking mean? So for me, and I'm getting a little ahead here, but it's quite all right. For me, it meant, okay, well, I know that, in the DC area, I don't know if it's like this in Chicago, but anytime you go to an event, you're always going to get asked, so what do you do? So rather than being anxious about how to answer that, I crafted my response to that. And again, it wasn't perfect the first time, but I knew that I refined it. And so once I did that, then I knew, okay, I could be a little bit more comfortable. And then the other things that I did is I used my natural uh, questioning ability to focus on other people. And so if I was going to a new event, I could just flip it and learn more about other people, where I didn't have to uh, tell others. And so over time, what happened was I really gained comfort going to large events, small events, and it's just that matter of practice and repetition. Okay. Other questions? And I'll just pause here for another 10 seconds or so. Okay. So again, acting out these new beliefs, it takes patience and it takes support. And I'm going to touch on the growth mindset a little bit, but it it also takes the understanding that you're not going to go out there and hit a home run every time once you start trying this new behavior, these new things. It is going to be uncomfortable. Um, but what's, again, one of the main themes here, main points, is the uncomfortable can become comfortable. Okay? Find that support network. Who else can support you in this? So say, hey, you know, as I'm trying to create my career, or as I'm trying to do something new in my career, I want to try something new. You know, will you support me? If you use the networking thing as an example, will you go to this event with me? Will you help me try to do this better? So whatever that example is for you, how can you find support in others? And then the other thing to consider is, how will you support yourself? How will you keep track of the positive things, the things that you're doing right? Oftentimes, people have a tendency to beat themselves up. So, for example, um, another change that I did in my life was, for the first, 42 years of my life, I never flossed. I just hated it, and the idea of it happened. Well, I had an aha moment when I was sitting in the chair, and then they, the first time this ever happened, they inserted this little device, and they were measuring the number of millimeters they could go down. And they weren't bad results, but they would only get worse over time. And so for me, once I heard that, I realized that I had to make that shift. And so as I was making that shift and started flossing, I might have missed a day or two, but I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let that hang me up. I just kept moving. And then over time, it became a new habit, and the subconscious was able to continue my behavior. So it became a habit. Okay. So that's the whole trick here, is to do things enough so that they become a habit. Okay. So next thing, build your action plan to find your next opportunity. Okay. So what's the cost of letting others dictate your future? By not taking action, by just letting each day go on without doing things for yourself, what's that going to cost you? Where will you be 5 years from now if you don't take action? And conversely, how will you feel when you start claiming those opportunities for yourself? And so it's natural to wonder, where do I start? And that's quite all right. Um, so what I found is there's four key things to help people find their next opportunity and develop their action plan. So number one is develop the right mindset. Let's talk a little bit about that already. Number two, strengthen your network. Number three, define your brand. And then number four, if necessary, enhance your skills. So if you look at these four areas, these are great ways to help you find your next opportunity. Okay, so mindset. When I first heard of the concept of Dr. Carol Dweck, she's a Stanford psychologist, and she has a TED Talk and lots of materials out there about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And so, do you believe that you're able to overcome your fears? Or do you believe that you will grow over time? So Dr. Dweck's work, those with a fixed mindset believe that they're dealt a certain set of cards, if you will, and they get what they get, and they either have it or they don't. So that's the fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is one where they believe, I might not be able to do this now, but I can do this in the future. All it takes is me to work hard, me to continue to try, me to learn from when I try, and keep developing and refining myself. So for some people, especially those that might be a little bit more older, a little bit more experienced, a little bit more set in their ways, what I find is that people find helpful is go back to the time when you were, very young and you were driving for the first time you actually started the car, and all of the thoughts going through your mind. And so I'll share with you what I was thinking, so for example, how quickly do you have to start the gas? How hard do you need to hit the brakes? How much do you turn the wheel? So you just all these different thoughts going through your head as you're operating a vehicle for the first time. And so now think of a time where maybe in the last week or so, where you've driven home from work, or you're driving to work, or you're driving somewhere, and you missed a landmark that you normally see because you were deep in thought about something, something at work you were thinking about, or your family. And so as you think about that, what happened? So when you look at when you're 14 or 15 or 15 or 16 driving that car the first time, you've got lots going through your head. It's uncomfortable, but then it becomes more comfortable over time. So much so that it's a subconscious behavior. So again, the uncomfortable can become comfortable. And so when was the last time you successfully learned to do something difficult? And so it might be a hobby, whether it's golf or cooking an intricate meal or skydiving or whatever. Anything that requires a lot of different steps, a lot of different thoughts when you first start, and then you gain comfort with it. Okay, so what happened as you did this more frequently? Okay, and how do your responses to the last two questions relate to your future? So again, the uncomfortable can become comfortable. Okay, so the second thing that we talked about to help you find opportunities is network. So how would you rate your comfort level with asking others for help or expanding your network? Okay, and again, it's possible to be true to yourself while networking. You don't have to put on a facade and try to be someone who you're not. You can be yourself while networking. Okay, you don't have to feel dirty, you don't have to be needy, and you don't have to be awkward. Okay, I've alluded to some of these 4 ways to gain comfort networking. again, reduce anxiety by practicing your elevator pitch. And one other tip that I saw actually in the last month or so that I think is helpful is instead of going into a one-way conversation, make your pitch engaging. Flip what you do into a question. So for example, for me, as an organizational development consultant, instead of me saying that, well, I'm an organizational development consultant, I might say, have you ever been in an organization where different teams are struggling because they're not sure how to proceed on a particular task or what the goals are for the organization? And then that invites the person to share their experiences. And so now we're involved in a discussion. And so once you're able to practice and engage others with your elevator pitch, you'll find it a much more comforting experience. Okay, number 2, provide value by becoming a connector. So look to serve others. Look to learn what others might value so that when you learn that, oh, well, I should connect them to this person, then your value amongst your network will rise because you're being seen as a connector. Another tactical tip here is if you're at a large event where you've got some prospects that you might be interested in meeting, look for groups of 3, right? Because if 2 people are engaged in a discussion, and if you're a little hesitant to introduce yourself to them, if not great, but if you're hesitant to meet them, look for groups of 3, because the likelihood is that one of the people will be less engaged in that discussion. And as a result, they'll naturally peel off and want to talk with you. And so now you can discuss with them your one-on-one discussion. And I've already harped on this a bunch, but treat each event as a learning opportunity. Don't strive for perfection, just strive for learning, strive for improving. And so again, these small steps can help you create more productive beliefs to create the future that you want. Okay? And so as you're thinking about your network, who can you reconnect with? What's important to them? What might they value? And then for those of you that want to expand your network, of the people that you're interested in meeting, what events would they go to? And how else can you build new relationships that are aligned with what you are interested in? Okay. Third thing regarding gaining action or building your action plan is branding. And so here's the most critical question to answer before you update your resume or LinkedIn profile, is knowing the future you want. What do prospects value? So for example, if you're in the job market and you're building your resume out, what's that hiring manager value? So an example here, going back to my training days, I worked with many training developers who were stringent on their process they used, and they didn't necessarily connect with the subject matter experts the way that they could have, and the way they should have. They imposed a lot of their needs and their wants onto their process because they thought training should be developed a specific way. And so knowing that that was a limitation to some teams, and knowing that hiring managers and training managers wanted people that could build those relationships, that's one of the things that I emphasized in my resume, back in the time. If you're in sales or an entrepreneur, and, think about where your customers are and what your customers value, what's important to them. Okay, what experience do your prospects want to have when they're interacting with you? And so think about it from their perspective. What is it that they hope to get out of it? Okay, another thing to consider if you're thinking about your brand, what three adjectives describe you? How can you bring that the best you to light? And so what I think is a good exercise, if you're curious about what your brand is and how people perceive you, pick 4 or 5 people and ask them, what three adjectives would you use to describe me? And then you can see what they respond based upon how you respond. And you can see whether your self-awareness is aligned with what others are picking up, or whether maybe you're seeing yourself a little bit differently. And so then you can use that as a basis to change how you're perceived. Okay, and then skill development. The last piece here for building the future you want is, what gaps might there be? Not just functional skills, interpersonal skills, leadership skills. And so consider those things when you're going for the future. And if you're not sure about what skills you want, try and find some mentors. Find some people who've been there, done that, and what can you learn from them to help you better identify those skills. Okay? And if you're curious about, once you identify those gaps, how can you fill them? You can find them in your current role. Maybe you can volunteer. Maybe you can ask your mentors and find out what they suggest. Okay? So throwing a lot at you here. What steps will you take in the next 30 days to reflect about what you want from your career? What steps will you take to strengthen and expand your network? What steps will you take to refine your brand and develop and enhance your skills? Okay. And again, my foot stompers here. It's possible to create the change you want. And so, again, I've thrown a lot at you. I'd like to turn it over now for discussion. What questions do you have? What would you like to explore? Okay, great question, Joy. So the question is, how do you build your brand without coming off too braggy? So I really think the personal mission statement goes along those lines. So by focusing on who you help and how you help them and the benefits that they receive, it's not about you, it's about the people that you help. What do you think, Joey? Does that work for you? Okay. What other questions? Okay. So let's see. I'm just reading a scenario here. Rafael asked a good question. And Rafael, if I recall correctly, you recently graduated. So you're beginning your career and need experience to apply for a job, but the job requires those skills. Enhance my skills through application in a professional setting. It's pretty difficult for me. What do you suggest I do? So Rafael, I'm going to ask you a question there. What have you tried? And so as you're typing in what you tried, I'm going to move on to Sandra's question, and I'll definitely come back to you. Sandra, great. How often do you revisit your mission statement? I go with my gut on this. So when things don't seem to be right with me, and things may not be aligned, and maybe I've tried something and I'm not getting the results that I want, then I'll go back to look at it. And Sandra, I'll throw it back to you as well. How often do you think that you need to look at it, at your mission statement? And so, Rafal, the reason why I asked you, to type in what I wanted, what have you tried? Okay, great. Here it comes right now. So you've tried learning those skills in a non-applied setting, free courses, workshops. Okay, great. So, so the difference, what I'm seeing is the difference in learning those skills and applying those skills. And so, let's see, Rafal, I recall earlier that you mentioned that you want to get into management, IT, and strategy consulting, right? So perhaps finding some volunteer activities. Have you ever heard of the organization called Taproot? They do a lot of pro bono consulting. And so if you get connected with that group, not only are you developing and able to apply those skills, but you're also building your network at the same time. So you get a twofer. So, thinking about what volunteer activities will help you build those skills that you need to beef up on your resume, I think is a great way to go for you. Your thoughts, your reactions? Taproot is the organization, TAPROOT, and that's one of the big ones. I can imagine there's other smaller ones. Yeah, and I believe Taproot is nationwide. Let's see. And so I'm reading Sandra's comment now. So Sandra's saying weekly or monthly. The ideal would be weekly. So Sandra, my reaction to your comment is, I think if you're updating your well, let me say it this way. So I think if you're first starting off and you say, let's say tonight you build your mission statement and then you try it out and you're testing it with others, from that perspective, yeah, I think if you're adjusting it weekly as you really refine it, then I think that's a fine. But let me caveat that to say, if you have refined it and you're comfortable with it, then it's probably going to be less periodic than that. Maybe quarterly, maybe every other 6 months or so. But once you have it refined to a point where you have it where you like it, you should back off and not do it as frequently. Does that make sense, Sandra? Okay, let me just type the organization here so that you guys have it. Okay, Taproot's the organization that does pro bono consulting work if you're interested in developing your consulting expertise. Okay, great. All right. I love the interaction. I love the questions. I'm happy to stay on as long as you guys want to, and unless Janelle kicks us off. But what else? What else is out there? What other questions do you have? Yes, I'll be happy to share the slides. And in fact, Chanel has those, and Chanel, please feel free to distribute the slides. I just do ask that you keep them for your own personal use and not to share with others. If you do have, if you would like to share with others, if you could just contact me beforehand, that would be great. All right, so now, one other question here before I move on. After retiring from executive ranks, any other suggestions on use for your process? Great question, Patrick. So I think it's a great opportunity to really go and really explore what you want. what is important to you? What, as you think about your career, what skills did you really enjoy using? And what is it and who is it that you really want to help? I think if you focus in on that mission statement, Patrick, I really think you'll be able uh, to help you move forward from that. And by all means, again, I'm happy to connect and explore this further if you'd like. All right. So again, I'd like you to share with me um, what insights did you discover today? All right. Nobody discovered any insights. Okay. Well. Uh, okay. Uh, Thanks for follow. Check out Taproot. I'm I'm being self-deprecating intentionally here. Um, what insights did you discover? Don't be bashful on me. Share. Okay. Great, Tim. That's right. Absolutely. Action is the key. Um, Again, what I find in some of my coaching work is people want to perfect things before they act. So an example here is I had a client where she was starting a new business and she loved to learn things and she was changing fields. So she was going from an accountant to a culture consultant. And so she had done a lot of reading, and she was continuing to read. Well, reading is not going to bring clients in. And so she had to recognize that she needed to get out there and throw herself out there and attract and find clients. And and the belief she overcame was that she went from not believing she had enough knowledge because she was comparing herself to others to believing that she did have enough knowledge and she could make a difference. And so once she made that shift and changed those beliefs, she was able to take forward, uh, you know, start taking action. And it wasn't shortly after that she was able to secure and find some clients. Patrick, great. I didn't really discuss fears that much, but the fear of rejection is a biggie. And so, what I encourage you to think of is, um, someone's no is another person's yes. Okay. Rafal has something to share here. One thought holding back. Don't have the functional skills. Okay. Uh, nice. Okay. So great. Okay. What else? Any other insights? All right. So after today, what actions are you going to take? What's one small thing that you're going to do differently as a result of our discussion today? Okay. Thanks for sharing, Sandra. Yes, absolutely. I think that's a key takeaway from our discussion is embrace the stickiness, embrace how hard things might be. Okay. Okay. Patrick's going to focus on developing his brand. Okay. Great. Okay. Tim is going to create a mission statement. Fantastic. Okay. Rafal is going to update LinkedIn. Great. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Okay. And so when you take these small steps, small things, how will you benefit? What will be different by taking these actions? Okay. Great. Get you on the path forward. Okay. So I'm just going to update LinkedIn. Okay, great. So here's my contact information. Again, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's my email address, and here's my phone number as well. I'm happy to take a call if you like. In fact, we'll be more specific there. I typically have my lunch hour from 12:30 to 1, and that's Eastern time. So from 11:30 to 12 Central time. If you want to give me a call and chat about how you're progressing, feel free to. Okay.
And Gus, I'm just going to say thank you on behalf of institutional advancement at IIT or Illinois Tech. You guys can definitely stay on the call for as long as you would like. I did put something in the chat box for the people who are online and can see that. But for the people who are on the phone, you can visit our archive for the Hawk Talks at alumni.iit.edu. And you can go to, give me one moment, get involved and just click on Hawk Talks, and all of our old talks, our past talks, excuse me, including this talk today will be there. This talk will be posted by Friday, so, or tomorrow. All right, and thank you guys for calling in, and I'm going to mute myself again just in case you guys want to continue the conversation.
Great, thank you, Chanel. So I do see Sandra's comment that she drafted a mission statement that she's going to refine. By all means, Sandra, if you'd like, go ahead and if you want to send it to me and gauge my reaction, I'll be happy to continue the discussion. Okay. Anything else? Looks like there's just a few people left. Joey, Patrick, BJ, anything else you'd like to explore? Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, not seeing anything else. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But again, feel free to reach out to me on email or on LinkedIn. Have a great day, everybody. All right, bye-bye.